Should you cheap out and buy a Honda Grom clone just like this one, or should you spend the extra money and go with a legit Honda Grom? Well, today we're going to be going over exactly that, my experience with both these bikes, and which one I think is the better bang for buck. So let's kick things off with this Honda Grom clone. I bought this thing off of Amazon. It was about $1,500 shipped to my door, although I did have to do some modifications to it to make it actually comfortable to ride and actually be able to go speed limits on the road without completely wringing out the engine. So what I did to this bike, I added some handlebars, some clutch levers. The stock handlebars were just a little tight, especially if you're a bigger person, which I'm not, but still had to put the pro tapers on it. So it does have pro tapers on it. And let's talk about the actual mods that help this bike ride smoother. We went ahead and did a sprocket conversion. I don't remember the exact conversion we did, but it was a bigger front end sprocket, which helps just with your top end speed a little bit, because first gear, if I remember right, was about 9 miles an hour, a little bit under, before you'd had to shift, which is just ridiculous. It takes 2 seconds to get there and you're shifting. So we replaced that in a heartbeat. And then the next thing we did, just to make it run a little bit better, smoother, idle better fuel efficiency, was the carburetor. We went ahead and put a Nibby carb on this thing, which made it so much better. You gain power, so much more smoother, so much easier to tune. The stock one, I'm not even sure if you can tune the air fuel ratio, but I do know on this one you can, along with the idle. It's super easy to change. The only downside of this carb was that the choke lever, I did not hook up. I did not find a way to hook that up. I don't think most people hook it up, but that was the only annoying thing, because you got to reach down inside the carb to turn it on. But other than that, yeah, this bike runs great, pretty smooth. I've had no issues with it. I think I have about 1,000 miles. Let's see. Nope. Okay, so we got just over 600 miles on this bike. I've had this bike for about a year. I bought it in the winter, rode it around a lot, made a bunch of videos with it. It's been on the street a bit. I got the title, everything's legit for it. But overall, I've had a great time with this bike. It's been reliable for the most part. I've completely abused this bike. I learned to wheelie, drift on it, send it off jumps, all kinds of crazy stuff. The only issue I ran into reliability-wise so far, again, 600 miles, but these are a very rough 600 miles, was the fork stem bearing. Eventually went out for me learning to wheelie, not setting that front end down very softly. So I did have to replace that. Ended up putting OEM Grom bearings on it, and it's so much smoother. But other than that, I've had no reliability issues with this bike. Now, on the other hand, this is my 2025 Honda Grom, the real deal. This does have a couple of mods done to it that were not done by me. I did buy used. So we got a nice eBay special exhaust on it, which is, it's a Grom. I'm not gonna spend $1,000 on exhaust for a Grom, so I'm not mad about that. We got some nice TST frame sliders, and then they also went out and changed the mirrors, and there is a sprocket conversion on it for a little bit more top end speed as well, which you got 5 gears in it. So I don't know how bad it was before, but they did it. I bought it as is, not gonna change it. So yeah, overall, I've had a great time with this bike. Zero reliability issues. It always starts up whenever I need it to, because it is fuel injection, unlike the clone, which does have a carburetor, which can be really annoying in the cold. It tends to not like to start all the time, but I haven't had too many issues. Worst comes to worst, just pop a little bit of starting fluid in there, it starts right up, not a problem. But yeah, as far as the legit Grom goes, no issues with reliability whatsoever. Now, I did have an older Grom back in the day, a 2015 Honda Grom in the same blue, believe it or not. Completely loved that bike. I only sold it because I thought I would need the space. I was gonna get some other bikes instead, kind of condense the stash down. So I ended up selling the 2015, and less than a year later, just bought a brand new one. So yeah, ultimately what led me to want to buy a Grom again, even though I had the clone, was just the smoothness. Shifting is so much smoother than the clone. It's a better gearbox, a better engine, because it is Honda, right? You don't even have to run it with oil in, you can run it with water in. You don't even need anything in there, it'll run, it's a Honda. So yeah, it's just so much smoother. The suspension's nicer, you know, again, shifting, the clutch feels amazing. Everything on this bike just feels a lot more premium than the clone does, which is to be expected. When we're talking price, like I said, $1,500. I think I'm around 17, 18 all together with all the mods I did, versus I paid $3,200 for this guy. So a little bit of a price difference, but if you think about it, $1,200 more and you could have the real deal. So kind of at the end of the day, I just wanted to be able to have a smooth ride, something I could take on the street comfortably with that 5th gear, which is a huge advantage. The 5th gear on the Grom versus the Clone is a huge advantage, and not all 125s do have that 5th gear. I think CF Moto, their Papio 125 has 6 gears apparently, which I haven't ridden that one yet, but the Z125 for the most part, I'm pretty sure those have 4 gears unless they change something, but the 2021 models and plus on the Groms do have a 5th gear, which is so nice, because the worst part about my old Grom 2015 had those 4-gear transmissions in them, and I gotta tell you, it got really annoying because you can't really take it on 55-mile-an-hour roads. Going up a hill, your speed drops to below 55 and it's just not fun. You got cars tailgating you and you're barely going the speed limit. So that is one downside to the Clone, is that it only has 4 gears, which once you do the sprocket conversion, it's not terrible, I gotta say. These seem to keep pace pretty well, so it's not the end of the world, but it is something to note that buying a legit Grom 21 or older, you will get that 5th gear. So another thing worth mentioning is going to be the ergonomics. Let me hop on this guy. With this Clone, for one, you sit on it and you hear plastic squeak. You can tell it's cheap even with all the mods I did. But as far as the ergonomics go, the one complaint I have with this Clone, the specific one is a Boom Vader 125, is this seat has a weird lip on it, which causes you to kind of get pushed into that gas tank, which gets really annoying after a long time riding. And 2, for wheelies, it's kind of annoying because I would kind of go in between where this back seat is and where the lip ends to get, you know, the best balance point. But for this, I gotta sit on top of the lip, which is just ends up being kind of a weird spot. Versus the Grom, you got a flat seat on it, so you can sit wherever you want and it's comfortable. I could also see this being really annoying if you're a taller person, which I'm not, but having that kind of lip there, your knees might be in the handlebars depending on how tall you are. Now, jumping onto the Grom, so much more comfortable. We don't got weird plastic squeaky noises when we sit on it, which is really nice. Everything just feels premium. Pulling in the clutch feels better. As far as the seat goes, they're both about the same comfortability wise, but you don't got that weird lip on this one, so you can kind of move around. If you're taller, you know, you can sit back, or if you want to do wheelies, you can sit back, not a problem. But overall, I don't got many complaints on this guy. So another thing you might be thinking about is going to be the aftermarket support. It can be tricky to find parts for the Boom Vader, although they did copy a certain year Grom. I forget, it's like the Grom SFX 2015 to 2017. I don't remember exactly the specifics. I'll put them up here. But for the most part, you can swap out OEM Grom parts depending on what it is. As far as the engine goes, Grom engines don't fit on here, so if you wanted to do a swap, you would have to do some welding to make it work. But I do know you can get these engines for dirt cheap online, couple $100, you got a brand new engine if you have any issues. But again, it just doesn't feel as good as the Grom does. Speaking of the Grom, as far as parts go, you know, being able to find parts, it's a Grom. Everything's super easy to find. Plastics, easy to find, although the plastics are really easy to find for this guy too. Plastics, you know, all the parts, sprockets, you know, and exhaust, all the parts on this thing are super easy to find, not to mention levers. Anything you can imagine, you can probably next day Amazon it, minus maybe plastics. I don't know. Amazon tends to be a little weird with buying plastics. They don't always have everything, but I do know for the most part, all these parts, super easy and fast to get. On the other hand, this is kind of trading out with older Groms, which makes it a little bit harder to find parts for. And you're always kind of unsure what the fitment is gonna be. Since it is a Chinese knockoff, you don't know for sure what parts you buy are gonna fit. When I had to replace the stem bearing for the steering, it took me 3 tries before I got the right bearing, which I ended up just asking AI, what's gonna fit this bike? And somehow it got it right. So I wasted my time buying 2 other bearings that I couldn't return because I tried to machine them and they didn't quite fit. I can imagine there being other stuff on this bike like that, such as these clutch levers don't exactly fit. Good enough, but there's a little bit of play in them, which can get pretty annoying. But yeah, overall, you can find parts for both of them. It's just a lot more confusing with the Clone. So overall, what bike should you buy? Is this worth the extra couple $1,000s, or is this worth the money because it's so much cheaper, more affordable, more accessible? You can buy it on Amazon, which is just crazy. And I would say it kind of depends on what you plan on doing with it. If you plan on doing a lot of street riding, plan on having it be your main bike, you want to go all over the place on it, ride around town, all that, I would highly recommend going with the Grom. Like I said, all the features are just more premium. The suspension, the clutch, the shifting, the engine, not to mention it's a Honda, super reliable. I've never had issues with the Grom so far, but I'm pretty nice to my to my bike, so that probably says something too. On the other hand, if you're looking to save some money, you know, you kind of plan on just using this how I have, completely ragging on it, learning to wheelie, you know, riding on a bunch of trails, taking it out here and there, but not a whole bunch. And if you're mechanically inclined and don't mind working on your bike, I think this is a great buy, because if you plan on just abusing the crap out of it and not taking that much out on the streets, why even spend the extra money to get the better stuff on this, because you're just gonna break it. That's where this guy kind of comes in handy. If you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money, still have the fun of a small bike, kind of plan on just ripping it around, I think this is the better option. Now, one thing to consider with both of these bikes is if you're buying it as a second bike, really think about how much you're going to use it, because for me, I bought this guy and I ride it once a month maybe. Same with this, once a month. Don't have a whole bunch of time when you have multiple bikes. You know, you kind of tend to stick to the bigger bikes unless you got buddies to ride with, or you just feel like going slow, then you're gonna take a Grom out. So if you don't plan on riding it a lot, again, maybe get the Clone. But if you have the money and don't feel like working on your bike, again, the Grom is the clear winner. Now, at the end of the day, either of these bikes you're gonna have a blast with. I've had a lot of fun with the Clone, ripping it around, learning to wheelie, drift, abuse it. This bike's been dropped so many times, still standing strong. So there's so much fun to be had with this. Same goes for this. I've ridden this a lot more on the street, less in the dirt, and it is a blast as well, especially if you got buddies to ride with. So either way, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these bikes. You're gonna have a blast with either one.